I'm Dr Louise Newson. I'm a GP and menopause specialist, and I'm also the founder of the Newson Health Menopause and Wellbeing Centre here in Stratford-upon-Avon. I'm also the founder of the free Balance app. Each week on my podcast, join me and my special guests where we discuss all things perimenopause and menopause. We talk about the latest research, bust myths on menopause symptoms and treatments, and often share moving and always inspirational personal stories. This podcast is brought to you by the Newson Health Group, which has clinics across the UK dedicated to providing individualised perimenopause and menopause care for all women. Today I'm doing something slightly different. I'm recording my podcast in the studio, so it's going to be filmed in real life with proper equipment, not just on my screen. And I've got a special guest here today, Anne Gildea, who's come over from Dublin. Difficult journey, which we'll explain in a bit, but she's here in real life. We're going to be talking about the tour that we're doing soon, which is going to start in the autumn. So welcome, Anne. Thanks for coming today. You've seen the clinic, you've seen my second home, and we've got loads planned, haven't we?
Yeah, I'm really excited about it, Louise, and it's amazing. There's nothing like meeting in person, and there's something magic about picking up the energy of people. I think that's beginning to be lost in there's so much Zoom and everything now. Yeah. It's just...
It's exactly the same for when I see patients. It's very convenient, it's very easy to do things online, but actually the energy, the warmth, everything, you just learn different things about people.
You do, and you just get a feel, and it's an intuitive thing.
Yes.
It's an animal thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. So I'm very grateful because there's a train strike today. So you have had the best journey.
Oh my God, Louise. I had my whole journey planned. I got my tickets and I was all ready to go. And I went to the train station and it's like, there's no trains today. And I had a real menopausal moment. It's like, oh, it doesn't compute. It was so funny. Then it took me, I thought, I'll get the bus into Birmingham. There's bound to be loads of coaches to Stratford. I took an hour and a half on the bus. I've seen all the suburbs of Birmingham, and then it was funny because I just had to make transport decisions, and my brain was.
Oh, yeah. So you've used your brain well, despite being menopausal.
Yeah.
But it was great because when Chris Davis, who's organising the show, said, I want you to meet Anne, I want you to look at her work, I had a little Google, had a read, had a watch, had a listen, had a laugh. And what you've done has been incredible. But I'm really keen to hear how you got into even thinking about menopause and let alone doing a stand-up comedy show about it.
Well, I'd had this act, and it's the reason I know Chris through other producers I'd worked with in the UK before. This act called the Nualas, and we were a comedy musical trio, and we toured a lot in the UK. And that was my Chris connection. And then we had come off the road. We'd finished doing that. And so I needed to do something else. And so I was in my 50s by then, and I thought it'd be really interesting to write something about being in midlife, but it was going off in every direction. So it was my partner, Paul, who said to me, he just gave me the title. He wrote it on the whiteboard, How to Get the Menopause and Enjoy It. And he went, that's your title. And I was extremely resistant.
Were you?
I just felt such negativity around the word menopause. Now, this is several years ago. It was during lockdown, and there is a real moment where everybody's talking about menopause now. But back then, it was still a lot of silence around it. And I just thought, well, at that point, I was postmenopausal, and I thought, I don't want to go there. It's medicalized. It's just like kind of sweaty, irritated women. That's the image you get. And then I started reading about it. And the scales fell from my eyes. I kind of went into shock for a while.
Did you?
Yeah, because I realised all I didn't know, and I realised I knew nothing about my body. I thought menopause was something that you just went through and then it's over. I didn't realise the long-term effect of that hormone depletion. And so one of the first things I did was I went on HRT. I just thought...
You hadn't thought about it before?
I absolutely hadn't. I think I had this... I'd heard something about that Women's Health Initiative.
Yeah,
Women's Health Initiative study. the shadow of that was definitely still hanging over the whole HRT piece. So I thought, well, I can't. I'd had breast cancer, so I just thought, not for me. Even though my cancer wasn't estrogen positive, it was triple negative. But I just thought, no, it's there's too many negatives around it. But it was just a received opinion without looking into it. And then when I just got all the facts, I was shocked that I had such ignorance, that there seems such general ignorance around what happens in our bodies. And I think particularly now, because we all live longer, and sustaining our health postmenopausally is so important. It's not just about treating those symptoms, it's about keeping healthy into your old age.
Yeah. Menopause has been just portrayed as an annoyance, actually.
Yeah.
I know when I started doing first presentation like 10 years or so ago, just to a group of healthcare professionals, and just Googling menopause and thinking about it, it's always hot flushes, it's always night sweats, it's always middle-aged, whereas we know 1 in 30 women under the age of 40 are menopausal, so they're not middle-aged. It's always like overweight woman with a fan, with sort of beads of sweat.
Yeah.
And then it's sort of used a bit of a butt of jokes, actually, oh, she's menopausal, ignore her. It's just like very patronising, really. And it's something that actually women are very vulnerable when they're menopausal, but they don't understand necessarily exactly how it's affecting our brains, how it's really affecting us, the bigger picture, because it's never been talked about as a brain disorder. It's a flushes, sweats disorder. And like you say, it's something that will get through. And I think when people realise that you never get through the menopause and you want to make it a really positive experience, but if you haven't got the knowledge, how can you make something positive when you don't know what it means?
Louise, that is exactly the part that I had no realisation of that. And I think what I found shocking was, I think it's something that every woman should know.
And every man, actually.
And every man, because, it is an inclusive condition.
Yeah.
You don't have to get it to suffer from it.
No.
But it's not to have negativity around it either, but it's just, it's like thinking about the mental health issues around it, the low mood, and a lot of women. I'm touring this show. Then I wrote this show, How to Get the Menopause and Enjoy It, and I've actually been on the road 3 years with it in Ireland now. And I talk to a lot of women, and it's not just low mood. A lot of women talk about a lack of confidence then comes along. Like one woman told me she didn't feel confident driving on motorways anymore. Like life can begin to contract a little bit.
It really does shrink, actually. And in fact, in the updated paperback of the book, someone called Joanne Harris, you might know, she's an author, she wrote a great book called Chocolat, talks about women being invisible and how convenient it is for society for women to be invisible. And I think there is a lot of invisibility in menopause, and not wanted invisibility. But you're absolutely right. I know when I was perimenopausal, I didn't want to go out. I felt really flat, just very joyless. Everything's a bit, it's not just thinking in treacle, you are wading in treacle. Yeah. Everything's an effort. And it's like, I just don't want to. It's just like, and this isn't me. And then you compound it when people have got anxiety and thinking, like you say, not driving. I see lots of women who don't go on a bus, they don't go on the underground. Yeah. So then they're like, where they go out is very small. Then they've stopped going to work. They've stopped their identity as who they are. It's really awful, and it's happened for many, many years, hasn't it? But
yeah, and I've talked to women too who maybe be feeling that vulnerability too, and then in their job they're having to do presentations, and suddenly they're having a hot flush. And as these things build up, women do just go, I actually can't do this anymore. Yeah, and they just step out of the workforce. Yeah. So
which it's 2024. I'm really shocked that we've got a treatable condition.
Yeah.
That's treatable with safe treatment that the majority of women worldwide are not getting.
Well, as you know, there's still so many doctors who will say, is it safe? And you have all those warnings around cancer that relate to, the study.
Yes. Well, the WHO study, which we know isn't actually relevant because the type of HRT we prescribe is different. But even that study didn't show the effects that were put in the media and the medical press, actually, because it was reported in the wrong way, reported wrongly, actually. But even this risk of breast cancer wasn't statistically significant either, so it's irrelevant.
Yeah, but you were saying a whole interesting piece too around the anti-inflammatory element of estrogen, and this almost anti-cancerous, rather than, oh no, it's bad. When it's gone, it's gone.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the arm of the study that only gave estrogen, so women who've had a hysterectomy and removal of the womb often only have estrogen. Those women, when they were followed up, had a lower incidence, 23% lower incidence of breast cancer. So estrogen seems to be protective of breast cancer, which really blows people's mind when we've all grown up thinking estrogen is bad. Yeah. But then also you think, my 13-year-old daughter who hasn't learned anything about estrogen at school. Yeah. But it's like, Mummy, how can your own hormone be a bad thing? Yeah. It doesn't make sense biologically that we have something in our bodies that our body turns against us. It just doesn't work like that.
Yeah, but then that's another piece around having hormone replacement that, I have met women who go, it's a natural process, menopause, and that's unnatural. So why would you just go with the flow? But that,
It's really interesting, isn't it, the whole natural thing? Yeah. And I think, actually, when you unpick what does natural mean, because it's associated with aging, there's a massive philosophical and medical debate, is aging natural or not, which is very interesting. We actually, as we were saying before, our life expectancy is so much greater than it used to be. So actually, is it natural that we live to our 70s and 80s? Who knows? We don't know, but we never used to live that long, for sure. But then also there's a lot of conditions now. For example, raised blood pressure is related to aging as well. It's more common as we get older. But I wouldn't not treat someone's raised blood pressure because they're in their 70s, because if I don't treat it, that person has an increased incidence of a heart attack. So we treat the blood pressure, get it lower to normal range, to reduce the risk of a heart attack. With menopause, as you found out with your reading, there is an increased risk of a heart attack when people are menopausal. Taking HRT halves that incidence or the risk of a heart attack. So actually, you could argue it's in a similar way that we're doing it.
Exactly, and it's just keeping a big part for me was also the link with bone loss, as they call it. I didn't realize a fall in estrogen is correlated to that, and I just noticed in the women on my mum's side of the family, there's we've accepted this idea of the little old lady and that women would just shrink away. Like I say this in my show, that my mum used to be the same height as me, and now she's just the size of a coffee table. The middle one in a nest. But I say it in the show and I laugh about it. And then I'm based in Dublin, but my mum actually lives in Manchester. And when I go to visit her, I do always do a double take and go, she's really lost so much height. And that's real menopausal correlation, isn't it?
Yeah, and presumably she's not on hormones. No, because there is this shrinkage of the bones. We've got loss of bone density, but also the discs reduce in size, so all the discs between. So there's just a shrinkage of everything, which then can reduce height. But obviously, when you've got bone loss, there's increased risk of osteoporosis, the thinning of the bones, which is so common. Yet we don't know. Well, many people don't realise how common it is, what it means. But also that HRT can reduce and treat osteoporosis as well.
That was one of the big reasons I went on the HRT, because I was postmenopausal by the time I was reading around it. But I just thought long-term health, but that in particular because I'd really observed it on my mum's side of the family.
Yeah. And so you were quite open about having had breast cancer before. Yeah. And thankfully, everything's fine for you at the moment. But did you have any chemotherapy or treatment?
I did. I had Talk about lack of knowledge, Louise. I had a swelling on my breast, but I had this received thing that cancer was a lump, that I imagined it as a discrete lump. So it was kind of a swelling that was getting a bit bigger. And I went, oh, that's nothing. And then one day I showed it to my sister and I went, do you think that's anything? And she went, we're calling the doctor now. Aww. And by the time I actually went to the hospital, it was stage 3. It had gone to all my lymph nodes. I had all my lymph nodes removed, and as well as I ended up having to have a mastectomy, that was quite a shock.
And did you have any extra treatment? Did you have chemo?
Oh, I did. Sorry, yeah, I did. I had chemo first. Right. I had 8 rounds of chemo. And over 4 months, dense dose every 2 weeks. And then I had a mastectomy, and then I had 7 weeks of radiation.
Right.
And then I got a fantastic reconstruction. And the wonderful thing about getting the reconstruction is I had a DF flap reconstruction, so it's my own tissue.
Yeah.
Once it's all done and dusted, you move on and you forget. I forget that I had cancer.
Yeah. And were you still having periods when you were diagnosed?
Yes, and then the oncologist, I was 45 years of age, and the oncologist said to me, now, you know, the chemotherapy is going to shut everything down, and given your age, your periods are probably not going to come back. Now, they did come back a little bit, and then they just petered out again. Here's the thing, and I talk about this on my show too. I would say maybe about 3 weeks after I started the chemo, I started having awful night sweats. As I say, every night I was wringing out the bed sheets, my nightie, my boyfriend's neck. And I didn't correlate that with menopause. But of course, because it shuts everything down, it had also shut down the hormone production. And I was plunged into menopause, as so many women are when they're going through chemo, but that was never mentioned. And I suppose there's so much else going on. I wish it had been mentioned, because once I'd been through treatment, I was so relieved. And I went to this brilliant hospital in Dublin called St. James's, and all the doctors were amazing. And I was so inspired by the whole experience that when I came out the other end of it, I just had this new love of life and positivity about moving forward. But I had terrible low mood, and I thought, well, that low mood is definitely not circumstantial. So because I'm so low, this is a disposition. I have a disposition to low mood. This has just been that the cancer treatment had worked so well, so I was applying the science to my own mind and going, this is dispositional and low mood, and I should go on antidepressants. And I actually was on quite a strong dose of an antidepressant called Cymbalta for 4.5 years, because I thought, I just have this disposition to low mood and I'll just medicate it away. I look back and I go, that was totally a menopausal symptom. Yeah. That's why my mood was low. And I wish I'd had information around menopause and effects of hormone depletion at the time, because I would never have gone on antidepressants. It was totally about that. And that's why it felt strange. And then it would have been a good time to talk about maybe some hormone replacement and to try a hormonal way of balancing out the mood.
Yeah, and which has happened so often. I did a presentation yesterday to women, and most of them have been offered or given antidepressants, and it seems so easy to get antidepressants, yet so hard to get hormones, which is wrong, and there's so much that needs to change.
Yeah.
But empowerment is good, education is good. You learn more when you're happy, don't you?
Absolutely. But you know, with the antidepressants, it's like medicine looks at women and goes, oh, they're so complicated.
I know.
Should we just tranquilize them?
Yes.
You know, it is like that. Just tranquilize them away as they drift.
Yeah.
Post-reproductively, they just drift away into the twilight years.
Yes. And there is a bit of put up and shut up. Because other generations have done it, why can't you? And then that makes it harder to ask for help. So laughter is the best medicine.
Yeah.
You learn more, as I said, when you're happy. So your show, which I've seen bits of, people are really happy. They really love it. They love, I think what I can see, and tell me if I'm wrong, is that they can relate to what you're saying in a way that they've probably not been able to admit before, that they're experiencing similar symptoms.
That's what women say to me and write to me. They go, "You told my life."
Yeah.
And that relatability piece is so important in it. I think it's coming through just the story of being a woman, and then when I add in the information, it makes it quite compelling.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and then I pitch the whole piece around menopause as reverse puberty, and I just say, think back to when you went through puberty and your body starts producing all these hormones. Think of the profound effect and changes that had that ensued. Well, now you're going through the other end of that. You're going through this depletion. So it's a kind of an equal and opposite thing. So because I talk, frame it in that way, then I talk a lot about growing up in the 70s and 80s, and I just reminding women of things that are like things like the sanitary products we used to have, and the intimacy and remembrance of that always gets a good laugh.
Yeah. But it's important. I think women need to understand that they're not alone.
That's it.
It's really, really important, because as we already said, it's really isolating. So your thoughts about the tour that we're doing? I've never been on a tour before. I'm feeling quite excited, a bit nervous.
You know what I'm really excited about? Like I'm really excited. I got really passionate about menopause when I started reading up about it. I'm really excited to be working with you because you're an absolute expert in the field, and I love hearing the facts coming from the mouth of an expert, and like some of the detail you were explaining to me earlier, the information is still not out there in the full, the full breadth of it. So that's the thing I'm really passionate about, to be working with you, who's totally immersed in all cutting edge research around it, and that you're continually talking to women with your patients and everything. You just know that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking forward to sharing content that we've not spoken about before, that I've not spoken about through my book or other podcasts or other media, because there's a lot. I've been reading a lot of women's history books as well, actually, which I think is so interesting, and medical books from the past as well, mainly written by men, I hasten to add, male doctors, but just people's perceptions of what menopause is and how it affects women, and the treatments. And
the treatment, like for the wandering room in ancient Greece, or that they used to put leeches on women's cervix.
I know. Yeah. It's incredible what women have gone through and endured, but what they still are enduring now. So a lot of that we can tease out, which will be great. I'm really looking forward to working with you, and how to, again, license something that can be very sad, but also very frustrating. But I want some of that frustration to keep coming out, because I think if you're frustrated, you're more likely to change things and to change the needle, because this is actually something that's affecting 1.2 billion women globally. It's not just something that affects a certain demographic or a certain type of woman. We can't escape from it, but actually to learn and to realize quite the injustice of what's going on as well. And if you're feeling all right, you'll definitely know a friend or a relative or someone who isn't, or is struggling to get help. So I'm hoping it will group and join people together.
The thing I really like touring theatres is that women really love that environment. They love coming out together in groups, and it's wonderful to make people laugh. It just opens everybody, and it's almost a spiritual experience. You know? So I think there's that
I get that. And I've done a few book events, and I did one last week actually down in Henley, and I was with Kate Muir, who's absolutely brilliant, and we were waiting to go on. And just the buzz in the theatre. Normally in theatres, people talk or mumble, but there's this energy where people were really happy. Then we did a question and answer as well. And this lady, she's so lovely. She said, I'm 82. I've been on HRT for 30 years. I'm never going to stop it. And actually the whole audience just clapped. They were all there with her in the room, you know, really supportive. And I thought, actually, there's not many live groups where people are there together. You know, you're in your own little group, aren't you? But actually the whole theatre was together by the end of it.
That is the thing that women say to me in my show, that in the intermission, that it's like everybody, like the cue for the loo, everybody's talking to each other, that there is suddenly, you've opened up the topic. And that 80-year-old woman was lucky, because I've met 80-year-old women who were, I've met 80-year-old women who had hysterectomies in the 50s, and they were allowed HRT for a few years, and then the doctor absolutely insisted that they had to come off it. And you know, that was the received opinion, that you couldn't stay on it long term. That was another revelation I had researching the show, that actually that you can carry on, and that it actually does sustain your health.
It was so important. People don't realise. So there's lots of myths that we want to dispel. Lots of facts that people can learn from. Quite a lot that people hopefully won't know or won't have put in context. And I think having the show, the context is really important. But we're also going to do a Q&A as well. So I'm hoping there'll be lots of questions from the audience, and that will vary every night, of course.
And that's the exciting thing about you bringing your knowledge into that environment, because the specific detail you have, I've done a lot of research around it, but I haven't heard it expressed so clearly, and just the nuance around things like cancer, not cancer, the subtle effects of what the hormones are actually doing. It's really important information.
Yeah, and I feel cheated as a doctor that I haven't been allowed to have this information. You know, I wasn't given it at medical school, I wasn't given it as a postgraduate, I wasn't given it as a GP trainee. I've searched and researched myself, but it's all out there. But it's hard to find something when you don't know where to go.
But it's also you bringing it all together. I'm sure, you know, I have never, like when I read your book, I hadn't seen such a clear, concise collation of all that detail.
So, well, hopefully there'll be lots and lots, and this will just empower people to think differently, I think. And what you were saying even about your show, making menopause positive, making it healthy as possible, making it something that is right for each individual as well, because, you know, neither of us are judgmental about others. We just want women to be able to decide and do what's right for them. So really great for you coming over to do the live podcast in real life. Just really wanted to ask you 3 take-home tips. So I always ask for 3 tips. So 3 reasons why you think people should either buy a ticket for themselves or buy a ticket for somebody else to come to see us in the show.
I think that it will be a wonderful night out. I think I just know from touring around my own show, it is a real sharing experience. So I've had 3 generations of families come along, daughter, mum, grandmum. So there's a wonderful sharing, and have a good laugh, but learn.
Yeah, really good. So I'm going to give my 3. I give my 3 reasons why people could come. I think, firstly, it's going to be a different event. It's not going to be something that people have heard before. So for new content, really important. The other thing is the availability, that they will have more of my knowledge that I can share to people, hopefully in a way that people can understand and take home from. And obviously, thirdly, the opportunity that people can ask questions and have answers. Some of the shows, I've got some of my doctors who work with me are going to be there in the show as well, so in the interval. So they will be able to answer questions, but obviously I'll answer questions on the stage as well. So thanks ever so much, Anne, for coming today. It's been wonderful having you here in person to do my podcast.
My pleasure, Louise, and it's just wonderful to meet you.
Thank you. You can find out more about Newson Health Group by visiting www.newsonhealth.co.uk. And you can download the free Balance app on the App Store or Google Play.